Bakugan is a childhood classic show that is very near and dear to my heart, and I would imagine a lot of people's heart. So today we're going to talk about how strong the verse of Bakugan is and why it's way stronger and way crazier than you remember. And on top of that, we're also going to discuss how strong Drago or Draganoid is in relation to all of this.
The battle brawl is on. Now there are 30 new more powerful Bakugan and hundreds of
Starting off, it's very important to establish how the Bakugan themselves function in the actual show. The monsters in question take up their mini sphere-shaped forms due to their sensitivity to different dimensional structures. What this means is that what universe the Bakugan are in dictates their forms. The Bakugans in New Vestroia would just be chilling in their monster forms, but in the human or Vestal's universe, they can only exist as balls due to the dimensions just being different. There's exceptions to this underlying rule, but this is the general status quo. It's also very important to keep in mind Bakugan come from a universe where the laws of nature are different, meaning they're not restricted by our laws of nature. Makes sense as they're giant monsters that change into plastic balls, but this is very important when we establish what they're capable of and is just stated outright in the actual show. I'll use Drago as a reference point since he's pretty much going to scale to everything we discuss in the show. Drago started out as one of the strongest Bakugan species in Vestroia, that being the Draganoid species, which are distinctly noted to have infinite potential. This should be very blatant, especially when you just think about his numerous evolutions in the actual series. I mean, bro has quite literally evolved 11 times in the show. These are numbers rivaling the amount of Super Saiyan forms Goku has. It's way too ridiculous. It's also noted that Drago possesses the ultimate warrior gene. This is due to him being a direct descendant on one of the first two Bakugan created by Code Eve, the mother-like creator of all Bakugan, which means he actually has the potential to be the most powerful Bakugan in existence. So even in the confines of the series itself, Drago does upscale from pretty much everything we're going to talk about is an actual beast, and we'll touch on more of what he's capable of when it becomes relevant. In terms of speed, many Bakugan would benefit off of scaling directly or fighting Chaos Bakugan, which is directly noted to be the attribute of light. Chaos Bakugan commonly manipulate light itself to actually battle other opposing Bakugan. Hence the ceiling for a lot of these Bakugan being light speed or being faster than light is really low. It's also just being stated in other mediums outside the show itself, with Chaos Bakugan having attacks literally being named speed of light. When you consider what these Bakugan are capable of, which we'll discover later on in the video, especially in terms of their abilities and hacks, it's just not that crazy to consider Bakugan whose element is light itself move at those speeds or can utilize attacks moving at those speeds. That's going to be the tamest thing in this video, so just hold on. But outside Chaos Bakugan manipulating light itself, someone like Drago performs some of the craziest feats in the series. I'll dive into this more when we actually get into the strength of the Bakugan in question or Drago himself. However, I do want to make it clear Bakugan as a series does deal with different dimensions or different universes as a whole, with characters traversing these universes. Drago, being one of these beings, is actually noted to be traveling between universes just by flying with his wings. The reason this is impressive is because anybody who's been around the block knows that traversing anywhere across the universe in a very short time frame requires vast amount of speeds, far surpassing that of light. We actually see on screen Drago is able to travel between universes by just flying, and the time frame for this taking place is 22 seconds. This is an absurd speed feat that actually comes out to, at a higher end, 133 quadrillion times faster than light. And that may seem like an insane jump, but when you consider, number one, that the light speed threshold is for fodder Bakugan, and Drago at this point was combating Naga himself, it isn't really inconsistent. This also just isn't the only time we see Drago perform speed feats such as this. We actually do see Drago fire a laser beam or blast that shatters through the walls of the universe itself into another universe. The time frame for this calc being around 15 seconds, give or take, actually comes out to over 192 quadrillion times the speed of light. As you can see, numbers just begin to lose meaning after a certain point, as these characters are just traversing across entire universes or sending attacks at these speeds in very short time frames. Putting aside big ass calculations with absurd numbers, the bottom line, even if you disagree with the notion of these calcs, is that moving across the universe at seconds at a time is just massively faster in light plus, or thousands of times faster in the speed of light, with actual calculations putting this beyond that. That's the bottom line. This also doesn't get into the idea that Bakugan could potentially have higher ceilings since they operate in dimensions where time itself doesn't flow. However, this is more nebulous and vague, as Bakugan themselves have very innate time stop resistance, as they can just move and stop time itself, or their battles stop time in the real world. Either way, it just is pretty ridiculous what they're able to accomplish speed wise. In terms of strength and where the upper tiers of the Bakugan verse, or where Drago would potentially scale, it's important to discuss how exactly the Bakugan Cosmology functions. Starting off, we have Vestroia, which is one of the two universes where Bakugan originate, it being made up of 6 attributed dimensions and one massive void dimension between the others where the white ones lived, and the Dune dimension, which is Vestroia's afterlife. At the center of this universe where these entire dimensions exist is the Silent and Infinity Core, which together embody Vestroia and hold ridiculous amounts of power. It's also very important to note that the dimensions in question that exist within Vestroia are actually noted to be hyperspaces. Hyperspaces, for those unaware, are generally higher dimensions or just parallel universes, with characters like Naga not only being able to create his own hyperspace, but also cause explosions so powerful that it actually affects all of the dimensions in Vestroia. This caused each of the dimensions to actually cross over and break, turning them into cards. It's also important to keep in mind that Naga was actually going to cause the human universe and Vestroia to collide together, destroying them both. It's just being stated multiple times in the show itself. This also doesn't get into the idea that even far weaker Bakugan are also just able to create pocket dimensions, such as Klaus's Cybernoid actually being able to create a pocket reality, being an entire ocean in the battlefield completely separate from the existing world. This also not even considering Naga being able to create 3 new dimensions, but him being able to destroy Vestroia as a whole does actually get him to those low multiversal levels of power, as there was going to be at least 12 universes total which he was going to destroy. Keep in mind that this is the season 1 final boss for Drago. Once you get later into the series, it does get crazier as we have higher and more dimensions that are being stacked together, as later on we have someone like Magbell, who is noted to be able to destroy all dimensional worlds with a hyper-dimensional explosion. But also being shown that there are numerous, hundreds to even possibly thousands of universes in Bakugan since Code Eve had been spawning them for eons. And this is really only the tip of the iceberg, but a general overview of how ridiculous the Bakugan scaling could get. But the low multiversal metric is pretty definitive, especially if you're going off New Vestroia as a whole and how that relates as a destruction feat. And it is important to know Drago would actually learn how to use the perfect core power, even being noted to become nearly as powerful as the perfect core itself, being powerful enough to do anything. And this does translate directly into the Bakugan's abilities, as if this all weren't crazy enough, the verse of Bakugan is just littered, and I mean littered, with broken hacks and abilities, which we'll talk about how Drago scales to in a moment. However, some of the more casual abilities, like I talked about, pocket reality creation with Klaus's Cybernoid, time stop, an example being the ability Chaos Freeze or Freeze Jail, both used by the Chaos attribute, which are capable of stopping time around the opponent or just the target in question. This also extends to rewinding time itself with the rewind time ability. We have spatial manipulation. There's an Aquas ability known as Trick World that completely reverses the opponent's senses to the point the entire world itself just becomes inverted. Petrification. Subterra Bakugan are able to petrify the opponent, which for those unaware means they're able to turn the opponent to stone, specifically through the Iron Plate ability. Soul Manipulation. Darkest Bakugan have access to the attack Devitalize, an attack that targets an opponent's will and weakens them, to the point you can actually rip out the opponent's soul with this attack. You have abilities such as Foresight and Aqua's ability that lets you see the future, Antimatter Burst, which is a Darkest attack that lets you shoot antimatter itself. The list just goes on and on. I'm literally scratching the surface of what these Bakugan are capable of. I just would be here all day listing their broken and ridiculous abilities, which nobody nobody really has time for. These dudes literally started spawning lightsabers just due to field cards, you know what I'm saying? Nothing is off the table. Spectra is the greatest of all time, and I will die on that hill. This is actually very important, especially when discussing the Infinity Core, which is noted to just give a wide range or a multitude of abilities, but the most important thing is being able to use any ability, even special abilities, which essentially mixes every Bakugan into one. This specifically is in reference to Drago, as he's noted to have the powers of the Silent Core plus those of the Infinity Core. Drago being an ultimate Bakugan really means he has no ability limit, meaning he can use them all. An example being him using Aquos, Subterra, and other elemental abilities in his fight with Naga. It is also worth noting that this doesn't get dropped off, as we actually see when Spectra is controlling Drago, this persists with him using Subterra, Aquos, and Helios abilities. So in short, pretty much Drago is going to just be upscaling from everything we talked about in the video, especially with the perfect core, as we also just see he's able to warp the entire humans universe, and Vestroya being able to alter the attributed dimensions into a single world as it used to be before the perfect core was split up eons ago, creating new Vestroya. In short, Bakugan as a verse is just absolutely ridiculous, this especially being the case for Drago. And yes, Drago does solo your favorite verse. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys thought down below. Do you agree, disagree, why? What do you think about Bakugan? If you guys want to see more of these videos, definitely consider subscribing, and I will catch you all next time. Bye bye.